Imagine walking through a towering stone gatehouse, past a drawbridge creaking under your feet, while banners flutter above the battlements. The cold wind carries the smell of smoke from the great hall, mixed with the stench of horses and unwashed bodies. You hear the clang of armor from the training yard, the chatter of servants rushing with buckets of water, and the low murmur of monks chanting in a nearby chapel. Welcome to life inside a medieval English castle. We often imagine castles as romantic fortresses of knights in shining armor, kings and queens at feasts, and fairy tale towers. But the reality? It was far messier, noisier, and far more dangerous than we think. Today, we are going to step inside Warwick Castle, one of England's most iconic medieval fortresses, and uncover what daily life was really like behind its stone walls. From the luxury of the Lord's chambers to the grueling work of the servants, from the terrifying prisons to the roaring fires of the kitchens, you'll see a side of castle life that Hollywood never shows. And trust me, by the end of this journey, you might think twice about wanting to live in a castle. The heart of power, Warwick Castle's Great Hall. Built in 1068 by William the Conqueror, Warwick Castle wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of military strength and political authority. The Great Hall was the beating heart. Picture torches flickering against cold stone walls, tapestries hanging to block drafts, and long oak tables where lords, knights, and guests dined. Feasts weren't daily. Most meals were simple bread and pottage. But when the Lord entertained, it was theatre, roasted boar, swan, and venison paraded in, musicians playing lutes, jesters performing tricks, dogs running under tables. Yet, hygiene was terrible. Bones and food scraps were tossed on the floor, mixing with rushes that might not have been changed for months. Life of the Lord and Lady. The Lord of Warwick held enormous power. His private chambers, often at the top of a tower, were warmer, with carpets, feather beds, and sometimes even primitive toilets, guardrobes. The lady of the castle had a crucial role, overseeing household management. She supervised servants, managed food stores, textiles, and even defense if her husband was away. Courtly life included reading illuminated manuscripts, playing chess, embroidery, and receiving guests. But privacy was almost non-existent. Chambers often had attendants sleeping nearby. Knights and soldiers. Warwick Castle always maintained a garrison. Training yards echoed with clashing swords and the thud of arrows hitting straw targets. Knights weren't just warriors. They were bound by codes of loyalty and service. Young boys, starting as pages, learned manners, riding, and weaponry before becoming squires, then knights. Daily routines included drills, patrols along the walls, and readiness for siege warfare. Armor was heavy, expensive, and uncomfortable, rarely worn unless necessary. The servants' world, beneath the glamour, hundreds of servants kept the castle alive. Cooks, laundresses, stable boys, grooms, falconers, and scullions. Servants slept in drafty halls, sometimes on straw. Their work began before dawn, fetching water, tending fires, preparing bread. The kitchens at Warwick were enormous. Picture roasting spits large enough to cook entire oxen, cauldrons bubbling with stew, and bakers working all night. Life expectancy was short, and back-breaking labor was constant. Religion and ritual. Most castles had chapels. At Warwick, daily prayers structured life, from dawn masses to evening vespers. Religious festivals broke the monotony: Christmas feasts, Easter celebrations, and saints' days. For peasants, these were rare moments of joy amid toil. Defense and fear of attack, Warwick Castle's walls, towers, and moat weren't for show. They were vital for survival. Imagine a siege: boiling oil, arrows, stones hurled by trebuchets. Inside, panic mixed with discipline as every hand was needed to defend the walls. Food had to be rationed, wells protected, and morale kept high. Siege warfare could last months, and disease often killed more than swords. The dark side, dungeons and disease. Beneath Warwick lie chilling dungeons, where prisoners were chained in darkness. Torture was real, though less frequent than movies suggest. It was brutal when used. Sanitation was horrifying. Guardrobes emptied waste straight into the moat or cesspits, breeding rats and plague. Outbreaks of dysentery, smallpox, and bubonic plague swept through castles despite their stone walls. Entertainment and leisure. Life wasn't all misery. Hunting in vast forests was both sport and necessity, providing venison for the Lord's table. Music, storytelling, and tournaments were forms of escapism. Jousts were both entertainment and training for war. Children played with carved wooden toys, while nobles enjoyed falconry and board games. A day in the life. Picture a typical day. At dawn, servants rush to light fires. Knights train in the yard. The lady inspects storerooms. The lord hears disputes in the hall, dispensing justice. At noon, a meal of bread, cheese, and ale is served. In the evening, the great hall fills with chatter, and candles flicker as shadows dance on the walls. At night, doors are barred, guards take watch, and the cold stone corridors fall silent, except for the howling wind and the occasional rat. So, what was life really like inside Warwick Castle? It was a world of contradictions. Luxury and hardship. Power and fear. Ceremony and filth. For the lord and lady, it meant influence, comfort, and prestige, but also constant political danger. For knights, it was honor and duty mixed with endless training and bloody battlefields. For servants, it was unrelenting work, cold nights, and little reward. Yet, castles like Warwick were more than fortresses. They were living organisms, thriving communities where every stone echoed with human voices, struggles, and hopes. Today, Warwick Castle still stands as a monument, its towers and dungeons open to visitors. But when you walk those halls, remember, the stones once heard laughter, prayers, screams, and whispered secrets. They witnessed love, betrayal, birth, and death. And while castles seem like relics of fairy tales, they were once the beating hearts of medieval life. So, the next time you picture a knight raising his sword or a princess staring from a tower window, look closer. Because the real story of castle life is far more fascinating than the legend.